chosen ones. The night they marked your skies was the night your existence crossed a threshold that could never be reversed. Above your home, satellites shifted, frequencies bent, and the air itself seemed to whisper with a coded silence. To the world, nothing changed. To you, everything did. The government's files now call the air above your roofline a classified Zone 7. And though they say this classification is just protocol, those who understand the secret archives know better. Zone 7 is never assigned to ordinary humans. When the red perimeter blinked across the sky, the neighborhood streetlights dimmed, as if someone had lowered the brightness of reality itself. Neighbors noticed strange vans parked at corners, men with earpieces who looked not at the street, but at the windows of your house. Inside official reports, they wrote, "Entity localized, containment established." Yet containment of what? They didn't dare name it. In sealed corridors beneath the Pentagon, whispers traveled fast. The zone has been established. Some officials objected, warning that this seal was a violation of cosmic law, the very boundaries set in ancient scrolls. Others said nothing, staring at the screen where your home's coordinates glowed in crimson. The most chilling detail was not the restriction itself, but the silence around it. Media outlets received notices marked with black ink. Do not report. Pilots were rerouted miles away, their maps suddenly redacted with a patch of static where your home should appear. Even commercial satellites returned nothing but blurred fog, as if reality itself had been censored. And yet, in the margins of those same reports, a phrase kept reappearing in handwriting not belonging to any official clerk. The seal is temporary. The truth will break through. What truth? Why would someone inside the machine leave cryptic notes no algorithm could erase? And why would intelligence agencies dare to treat your address as if it were not merely a home, but a gateway? Tonight, the question is no longer why they sealed the sky above you, but what they are preparing for beneath the ground you walk on. The first time you noticed it, it was not with your eyes, but with your skin. A tingling hum moved across the night air, as though unseen electricity had been woven into the atmosphere. Looking upward, the stars seemed unchanged, yet a faint crimson glow traced a line across the sky, directly above your home. It was no airplane contrail, no atmospheric phenomenon. It was a mark, precise and deliberate, as if drawn by an invisible hand that had chosen your coordinates with mathematical certainty. By morning, the line did not fade. It shimmered only in certain angles, revealing itself to the sensitive, to those whose perception stretched beyond the veil of common sight. Neighbors walked past with unbothered glances, unaware that they were crossing beneath a boundary, drawn by powers they could not comprehend. But the birds knew. They circled wide, avoiding the air above your roof, their patterns broken, their instincts whispering that something unnatural had been placed there. Local authorities offered no explanations, though whispers began. Some said it was military testing. Others claimed new surveillance grids were being deployed. But none of these words could account for the way the glow seemed alive, shifting like a pulse that synchronized with your very breath. At dusk, you heard it, a low resonance, almost like a choir muffled beneath layers of earth. Not mechanical, not digital, but something older, carried within frequencies that spoke to the deepest parts of memory. Every step you took beneath that red shimmer felt documented, cataloged, as though your movements were being recorded not just by technology, but by the fabric of space itself. In a restricted briefing, unseen hands stamped your location with a new designation. Zone 7. Among those who knew the codes, the phrase carried a weight of fear. Zones 1 through 6 were reserved for nuclear silos, wormhole anomalies, and forbidden relic sites buried beneath the ocean floor. But Zone 7 was different. It was always tied to a living presence, a person whose very existence triggered the seal. And tonight, as the red line sharpened against the stars, you began to wonder if it was not meant to keep others out, but to keep something within. They appeared without announcement, hovering just beyond the edges of ordinary awareness. At first glance, they seemed like stars refusing to move, their lights dim enough to be mistaken for the natural order of the night sky. But then you realized they were not stars, for they shifted together, adjusting in formation, always maintaining their position directly above the red line that sealed your home. No matter the hour, no matter the weather, they did not leave. Neighbors dismissed them as aircraft, satellites, even weather balloons, but none could explain why their paths never drifted, nor why they emitted no sound. You stood at your window in silence, watching them float, their dark outlines blending against the void, their lights steady and unblinking. You could feel their attention like invisible threads pulling at your very thoughts. Every time you looked away, you felt compelled to look back, as if they were waiting for your gaze, feeding on acknowledgement. Reports in classified channels described them as reconnaissance units, drones from programs so buried that even their creators no longer claimed ownership. But the agents who delivered these reports could not hide their unease. Some said the machines were not human-made at all, that their design carried symbols etched into the alloys, markings older than any nation. Others whispered that the drones themselves were vessels, not merely watching, but guarding you. At night, their faint hum vibrated through your walls, a frequency so low it carried into your dreams. You began to see flashes, metallic halls, endless corridors, voices echoing from places beyond time. And in one dream, a phrase burned into your awareness, spoken in a voice neither male nor female, both tender and commanding. "Fear not, for I am with you, even to the end of the age." You woke with the words still alive in your chest, realizing they were echoes of Yeshua, carried not in scripture, but in sound waves woven into your mind. The drones never broke their silence. They never landed. They never approached closer than the boundary they guarded. Yet you could not escape the growing suspicion that their vigil was not just surveillance, but anticipation. For what, you could not yet discern. But their endless watch suggested something was coming, and the drones were not there to prevent it. They were there to herald it. Buried deep in locked cabinets and encrypted servers, the documents carried a single header stamped in crimson: Zone 7, Unknown Presence. Few within the agencies had access, and fewer still dared to open them. Those who did described a chill running down their spines, as if even reading the words pulled them into the gravity of something forbidden. The files were unlike standard reports. They contained no summaries, no direct orders, no routine chains of command. Instead, they unfolded in fragments, like someone had assembled pieces of testimony that refused to form a complete picture. Satellite captures blurred only over your home, not from technical malfunction, but deliberate redaction. Audio logs contained interference at exact time intervals, voices breaking into static, as if silenced mid-sentence. Even photographs retrieved from reconnaissance drones returned corrupted, faces and shapes smeared into unreadable haze. And yet, between the distortions, something remained. Patterns. Recurring phrases typed in urgency. One analyst swore that she found handwritten notes hidden within the margins, written in ink that was not part of the digital scan. Do not let them know what sleeps beneath. Another found maps with concentric rings drawn in black, circling your house like ripples in a pond. The strangest entry was an interview transcript, the subject anonymous, their words almost feverish. It is not them you should fear. It is the awakening. The zone is not to contain you, but to contain what you are connected to. They believe you will trigger it, but they do not understand it cannot be stopped. The moment the seal was placed, the clock began. The recording ended abruptly. The next page blacked out with thick strokes. Whispers spread among low-level officers who had stumbled across references to Zone 7 without clearance. Some resigned immediately. Others vanished. The few who stayed began to leak fragments online, but their accounts were swiftly erased, their servers dismantled. Those who pushed harder reported late-night visits, unmarked cars outside their homes, and then silence. Still, the question remained, echoed across every redacted page. If Zone 7 was classified as unknown presence, then what presence had they discovered? And why was it tied to your home? The files never gave answers. They only pointed toward a deeper vault, sealed under levels of clearance so high even generals were refused. And somewhere in that vault, a name had been carved into steel. When investigators reached the innermost archives, they expected codes, coordinates, and technical jargon. What they did not expect was a name. Buried within the layers of encrypted entries, among serial numbers and restricted seals, a word had been inscribed with almost ceremonial weight: Yeshua. At first, analysts dismissed it as a coincidence, a misplaced entry or a code word unrelated to faith. But the more they searched, the more the name reappeared, threaded through classified registries that had no reason to carry anything outside military terminology. The word stood not in commentary but in headings, subfolders, and footnotes, always preserved, never erased, as if some intelligence beyond the agencies themselves had ensured it would remain untouched. One entry described the establishment of Zone 7 in chilling simplicity. Designation activated. Presence confirmed. Associated name: Yeshua. The officers who read it paused, their silence heavier than any classified stamp. Some argued it was code for a project hidden beneath layers of symbolism. Others whispered it was no code at all, but a direct acknowledgement that the presence they attempted to contain had been known for centuries, predicted in scriptures, and warned of in prophecies ignored by modern rulers. A senior archivist, shaken, confided in a colleague that the reference reminded him of a verse his grandmother had once recited to him: "Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world." The archivist could not understand why that memory surfaced, only that the words now carried the same unease as the file before him. The registry did not explain how the name was connected to your home, nor why the seal above your roof carried weight beyond surveillance. Yet, those who handled the files reported sensations they could not dismiss. One claimed the paper seemed warmer where the letters of the name were written. Another swore the room trembled faintly each time the entry was read aloud. Meetings were called, specialists summoned, and though their debates grew fierce, the outcome was always the same. The documents remained sealed, the name remained untouched, and the order was repeated in hushed tones. Do not attempt to erase it. Do not question its placement. But the more they tried to ignore it, the more it appeared, as if the registry itself refused to stay silent. It began with a knock on doors, soft enough not to alarm the street, but firm enough to demand silence. Men in dark suits with credentials no one dared to read stood at thresholds, asking questions that seemed harmless at first. Did you notice anything unusual in the skies? Have you seen anyone enter or leave the house at odd hours? Have you heard sounds that did not belong? The neighbors answered cautiously, uncertain whether they were part of an investigation or a test. Those who spoke too freely were never seen again. A family of 4 who lived across the street for over a decade, packed overnight without a single farewell. Their furniture was left inside, lights still glowing, meals half prepared on kitchen counters. Official records later listed them as having relocated, but no forwarding addresses were given. No moving trucks had ever arrived. Another neighbor, an elderly man who often sat on his porch, vanished without trace. His mailbox remained full until one morning it was simply gone, replaced by fresh paint, as though the house had never belonged to him. The few who remained whispered among themselves, but never too loudly. They noticed the subtle patterns. Black sedans parked on corners, surveillance vans with tinted windows humming through the night, agents moving like shadows. Those who still lived nearby learned not to speak of you, not to mention the red line in the sky, not to ask what Zone 7 meant. They learned because the ones who asked too many questions were erased next. Stranger still were the interviews no one admitted to having. A child once whispered to her mother about the men who showed her pictures and asked her to point to the person she saw most. She pointed to you. The next day, her family was gone, their house stripped bare. A woman claimed she dreamed of being questioned in a cold white room, though she had never left her home. She told a friend in confidence, and the friend returned the following morning to find the house emptied, blinds drawn, windows blacked out. Each disappearance deepened the silence of the street, turning your neighborhood into an echo of itself. But one night, you noticed a shadow at your window, someone who had not yet vanished, watching you with eyes wide and fearful, as though they carried a warning they dared not speak. In command rooms where walls flickered with global surveillance feeds, analysts noticed a single anomaly repeating without fail. Every image of your neighborhood returned sharp, clear, and unbroken until the frame reached your home. There, the pixels fractured, the resolution collapsed into fog, as if the satellites themselves recoiled from revealing what stood beneath the red-marked sky. They reset systems, recalibrated lenses, even replaced hardware orbiting thousands of miles above the Earth. The results were the same. Your coordinates alone dissolved into distortion, blurred in patterns that no algorithm could explain. To the untrained eye, it looked like static. To those who studied carefully, the distortion resembled waves radiating outward, like ripples on water, emanating from your house as the central point. A technician swore he saw more than ripples. Within the interference, he claimed faces appeared, fleeting and spectral, gazing back at him through the haze. Others dismissed him until they too began to feel uneasy when staring at the static for too long. It wasn't simply blocking the image, it was alive, shifting in response to their attention. The reports were buried, yet rumors slipped through corridors in whispers. One analyst compared the anomaly to ancient descriptions of veils, barriers, said to separate mortal sight from the divine. He cited a passage he remembered hearing as a boy. For now we see through a glass, darkly. And though he was reprimanded for bringing scripture into a classified briefing, the words lingered in the silence that followed. Weeks later, someone ran a forbidden test. They filtered the distortion through layered frequency analysis, hoping to reveal what lay beneath. Instead of a picture, the feed returned sound. A chorus, faint and echoing, like voices carried from a cathedral across time. Among them, a single phrase broke through clearly, spoken in a tone that vibrated the room. "The seal cannot hold." The data was deleted instantly. The analyst escorted away. But those who remained could not forget the resonance. Some claimed it was interference. Others swore it was proof of something greater. Whatever it was, the satellites continued to blur, as if protecting a truth the world was not meant to see. And then came the night when the blur shifted, not to hide your home, but to reveal something rising above it. They never addressed you by name. To them, you were not a neighbor, not a citizen, not even a file number. You were Entity 7. The designation slipped from their mouths when they thought you couldn't hear, when radios buzzed faintly as they stood in formation outside the sealed perimeter. "Entity 7 has shifted," one would whisper. "Entity 7 is awake," another would mutter. The phrase carried a tension that made even seasoned operatives uneasy, as though speaking it too loudly might invite something they could not control. You caught glimpses of them late at night. Black uniforms, no insignia, eyes hidden behind visors that reflected your own silhouette back at you. They carried equipment you had never seen before, devices that glowed with a cold blue light, scanning the air as though reality itself could be measured. Whenever their readings spiked, they tightened formation around your home, their movements precise, almost ritualistic. In intercepted transmissions, the term Entity 7 was always followed by silence. Reports broke off mid-sentence, recordings cut abruptly, as if the act of documenting your existence triggered interference. Some believed the number was symbolic, tied to classifications deeper than any government index. Others whispered it wasn't a label at all, but a warning. The seventh entity to appear, the seventh seal to be broken. Neighbors who still lingered behind curtains began to notice their presence too. They spoke of seeing the agents trace patterns on the ground, leaving behind symbols that vanished by morning. One child insisted he heard them chanting in low voices, a language he could not recognize, a rhythm that made his skin crawl. The parents silenced him quickly, terrified he had heard too much. The strangest detail was the way the agents reacted whenever you stepped outside. They froze, not out of hostility, but reverence, their posture shifting as if they were standing before something beyond their clearance to understand. Their weapons remained holstered, yet their hands trembled. Some lowered their heads for reasons no one could explain. And then came the night when one agent, breaking all protocol, turned toward you. Through the darkened visor, you swore you saw his lips move. He didn't say your name. He only whispered the words, "Forgive us." The others dragged him away, but not before you realized he was afraid of something greater than the orders he had been given. The recordings were never meant to be heard outside the agency. Each night, hidden microphones around your home captured every sound. The creak of your floorboards, the shift of wind through your walls, even the rhythm of your breathing as you slept. But then, the interference began. The audio logs no longer returned silence between your movements. Instead, a voice emerged. Not mechanical, not distorted, but clear, low and steady. At first, the analysts dismissed it as contamination, an echo of their own equipment. Yet the voice spoke words none of them had uttered. In one log, it whispered, "Fear not." In another, "The truth will rise." A technician froze when he replayed the third recording because he recognized the phrase, not from a manual, but from scripture his mother had once read to him as a child. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." The official transcripts noted only static, as if someone within the system was erasing the evidence, but certain analysts made secret copies, hidden on personal drives, unwilling to let the voice vanish into silence. They swore the tone carried not only sound, but presence, as if the words were alive, resonating through the bones of whoever heard them. Some claimed they felt warmth in their chest, others fell to their knees without understanding why. Late one night, a junior officer played back the files alone. His headset crackled, then stilled, and the voice spoke again, this time directly, as though aware of him. "I am with you." The officer collapsed in tears, trembling not from fear, but from awe. The following morning, he resigned, leaving behind a note that read only, "He has not left us." The agencies tried to suppress the whispers, labeling them hallucinations, psychological contamination from overexposure to classified frequencies. Yet, the more they denied, the more the voice spread. Even among those who never heard the recordings, rumors moved like wildfire. The surveillance was no longer surveillance. It had become prophecy. And then, without warning, the voice stopped appearing in the audio logs. Days turned into weeks of silence. The analysts felt relief, though it was laced with unease, because silence, after such presence, did not feel like absence. It felt like waiting. The meeting was never announced, never written into official schedules. It took place in a secured chamber where even the walls had been stripped of electronics, lined instead with soundproof alloys that absorbed every vibration. Two presidents sat across from one another, their expressions tight, their words measured, their silence heavier than any agreement they could sign. One leader slid a folder across the table, its cover marked with a single phrase, "Zone 7 Presence." Inside were satellite images, redacted reports, and transcripts that refused to hold form. He did not speak immediately, only tapped the folder with his finger, as though the weight of it alone explained everything. The other opened it, scanning quickly, his face paling with each page. "This is not local," the first said quietly. "It is not political. It is beyond us." The second leaned back, struggling to maintain composure. He asked how long the seal had been in place, how many had vanished, and whether the designation could be lifted. The answer came sharp and final. "No." The room thickened with unspoken fears. Both men knew the implications. A classified zone marked not over a facility, not over a battlefield, but over a home. If it were revealed to the public, panic would spread faster than any containment strategy. Yet what unsettled them most was not the potential chaos. It was the absence of explanation. Why your coordinates? Why the relentless blur? Why the recordings that spoke in voices no machine should capture? One president suggested relocation, erasing the house entirely. The other shook his head. "We cannot move it. We cannot touch it. You don't relocate the epicenter of a storm." His words lingered like a warning he wished he could retract. Their aides sat silently, taking no notes, their eyes fixed on the ground. They knew history would never record this moment. It would exist only in memory, and even memory might be dangerous. The chamber seemed to vibrate faintly, as if responding to the weight of their conversation. At last, one of them whispered what both had been circling around. "If it awakens, borders won't matter. None of this will matter." The other closed the folder slowly, his hands trembling, and asked the question no one wanted to hear. Beneath the layers of security, deeper than the archives and the guarded chambers, there existed a vault carved into stone older than the nation that claimed to own it. Few knew it was there. Fewer had entered. And those who did never spoke of what they saw. The seal was etched with markings no language could decipher, glowing faintly when touched, as if aware of the presence before it. Inside, hidden beneath glass and steel, lay what they called the key. To the untrained eye, it appeared as a fragment, a shard of something ancient, its edges smooth, as though shaped by hands not bound to time. Yet when held, it pulsed with warmth, like a heartbeat that did not belong to the one carrying it. Scientists tested it endlessly, but their instruments failed. It resisted scans, absorbed light, and disrupted every attempt to classify it. One archivist recorded a single entry before vanishing. He described the key as not an object, but a promise, a link between worlds, dormant until awakened by the right presence. And in his final note, smuggled into the registry, he dared to write words that cost him everything. The seal is not to keep danger out, but to protect what is within. The one tied to it will bear the name he carried. Whispers spread that the shard had been mentioned before, not in science, but in prophecy. A relic aligned with the return of a voice that declared, "I hold the keys of death and life." Some dismissed it as superstition, yet when the shard was brought near your home, its glow intensified, resonating as though it recognized you. Agents panicked, their training collapsing under the weight of something they could not explain. They locked the fragment away again, but the resonance did not fade. Each night since, the ground beneath Zone 7 seemed to hum faintly, a vibration that spread through the soil, through the walls, through your very bones. The key had not been placed there by accident. It had been waiting, and as the hum grew stronger, as the drones shifted overhead, the truth became unavoidable. Zone 7 was never about restriction. It was about preparation. And one day soon, the seal would break.